Okay, so here we are, summer viewings. This is all about standing out from the crowd in the best selling season ever in the year. Summer is here, the blooms are up in full force, the sunshine is beating down. We need to take advantage of this, definitely. So it's the best time of year to sell, and especially the best time to be an estate agent as well. Blue skies, warm temperatures, and the nature of bloom make photographs and especially video look absolutely brilliant, and your homes look the best, while the lighter nights fuel faster decisions with fewer viewings in the dark. It makes a
Yeah,
fundamental difference, doesn't it, Richard?
it definitely does. See, the whole feeling around viewings and listing and taking people around properties and things in the different time of year is such a different feeling, and it gives that different feeling to the people walking around and doing the viewings and things as well. And there's a lot of good ways to capitalise on that, and that's what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, I mean, it's so many positives. It's no wonder summer's the time of year when lots of people decide actually to sell. And you see a flood of houses coming onto the market.
Yeah,
Sometimes that could be a good thing, especially for buyers, because there's more choice. But it might not necessarily be the best thing for sellers because there's more choice. So pricing appropriately and having the right price point is definitely the first thing you've got to do. As more homes come onto the market, really competition does hot up. The weather and it's the name of the game is really standing out from the crowd instead of getting lost in it. And in short, now's the time for your home to shine. Summer's all about really capturing that light, making the most of nature, creating connections between inside and outside. Getting those right will help you with this week's show. And this is what we're going to talk about. So you'll be well on your way to finding the perfect buyer as a result of this. You may think at this point in time it's not the best market for you. Maybe you've been sitting in the market for a while. Maybe you've not been sitting in the market for a while, or maybe you're just considering coming on, or maybe you're actually a buyer looking for top tips to watch out where people can significantly add value, and you know what's going on. Then that's a definite as well. So if you are looking to sell, then this is the one for you. We're going to talk about the various points here now. Front of house is definitely one of them. Catching the light is another. Keeping the rooms fresh and cool. Going for garden glory, what we can do there as well, and expect evening appointments now and how to take advantage of that. And then we'll wrap up with the final words. Richard, front of house curb appeal, especially with
yeah.
lettings as well. This has got to be the number one thing because you could be switched off straight away as soon as you see this, can't you?
Yeah, definitely. Curb appeal is such an important thing. I picked up on you talking about creating that connection between the inside and outside, which is a really big thing now. But we're going to kick off with curb appeal, and curb appeal sets the tone for every viewing and creating that vital first impression when a buyer arrives outside your property and has that initial reaction. Back in 2019,
Yep.
a one poll survey found that 6 out of 10 potential buyers reject a house before they do the walk through the door. And this still
Wow.
rings true. This still rings true today. I mean, that's. I mean, obviously that's a poll for back in 2019, but that is still the same today in
I've got
2024.
a sneaking suspicion it's probably just going to be higher. You know why I
Yeah,
think it's higher?
yeah,
Why I
possibly,
think it's
yeah,
higher with the advent of Instagram. Unless
yeah.
you've got an Instagrammable property, and everybody's conditioned like this now, to think about this. Unless you've got an Instagram property, when people see it from the front, I think a lot more can be turned off. And I think that's about
Mhm.
clever marketing, clever tactics, and also getting the right photographs. I'm still amazed at how many estate agents walk in with their mobile phone and actually take photographs of the
Yeah,
property. Especially for and it's like every single time, it's professional photographer every single time.
yeah,
It has to be. If you want your property, regardless, if you've got a 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom flat, it's maybe about 80 grand. I tell you what, another £5,000 wouldn't go amiss. And that could be the difference between getting the right photographs and not getting
yeah,
the right photographs. You could end up losing £5,000 or more just because you've got the wrong photographs on there, because the agent went through and just took photographs on their phone and put them on the website. Some of
yeah.
them are
But
horrific.
some of them are
I
really
was look
bad. Yeah,
honestly, I was looking at one this morning for a property in Leven, an actually really nice property near the coast, and it was on with another agent, and I looked at it and I thought, geez, you could have done them better. The windows were completely whited out, So you couldn't see outside the windows. So clearly they've obviously taken them on their phone and just turned the brightness up or the contrast in the room to make the room look bright. And then it's whitened out the window as a natural result of that. That's a big no-no, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, that's something I learned a long time ago. And we talk a lot about video and things, Jim, but photography and description and everything all have their place, and it has to be the right photography. And on your phone really doesn't really cut it when you're trying to sell your property. And those first few moments are hugely influential when you arrive at a property or whether you see it online. And we could tell by the look in someone's face whether they're impressed or whether they're not when we step inside with them. And it's really, you could really tell and read that for someone. Inside the property, when the sunlight hits every detail, when it shines on your home, making fresh paint glisten and say, do you know, it really says, I am a home that's loved. And you really need to get that through in your property. Having things that are tired and, do you know, if you look on the other hand, and exterior maintenance often feels like it's maybe more work and expense than it is. But it can make buyers wonder about problems that maybe aren't there if it doesn't look that great. Do you know, even if it's just a wee bit of flaky paint?
More than appropriate, isn't it? It's the classic example, as my father used to tell me all the time. When you go to see a car, if you see one fault, there's another two faults that you can't see.
Yeah.
And I think in human psyche, I think that still stands true today. People actually, if they see one thing, it kind of puts them off and thinks there's more things to come. So curb appeal is definitely the one, and it's the thing about, you know, check for the flaky paintwork. I went to see a house the other day, and they were actually apologising for the state of the house. But when I actually looked into it, to be honest, the windows were only needing a quick rub down and actually repainted. The sills might have been needed cutting out and replaced. But you could have got away with existing windows as they were. But they were apologising if the windows were about to fall out. It's nothing like that at all. You could make a huge opportunity here with a minimal expense of just getting them rubbed down, taking the flaky paint off, and just giving them a coat of paint. Just so it's like what you said, Richard. It's so it glistens when the sunlight hits it.
Yeah, it does create that impression, and it's very simple to sort maybe flaky paint on front doors and windows, or even if there's any water staining on rendering things on the exterior of the property. It's easy enough to put this right and have that cleaned, and that is something that could be off-put.
What's your favourite colour for your front door?
Well, you're going to hate me because I'm going to say grey, the light grey colour.
Yeah, and in actual fact, I actually think in some properties which are more Victorian style, maybe early 1900s, late 1800s, I think actually a bright yellow in the front door, or maybe a pillar box red, or maybe a deep royal blue, you know, would look nice as well. I definitely think these are the colours that pop when it comes to this type of season, because you've got the bright sunshine, and that's what it's associated with anyway.
I think if you like see the deep royal blue colour with chrome, do you know, if you've got the letter box and you've got the handle in the middle, and do you know if they're really shiny chrome and you've got deep,
sets the right impression, sets the right tone as soon as you walk in that door, doesn't it? But I know what you mean. In terms of UPVC and that, UPVC doors actually, because we're all getting UPVC doors nowadays, and the newer properties or properties that have been refurbished, you know, grey goes quite well actually. Definitely. I think
I'm agreeing because my whole house is grey just about.
Well, it's in. It's still in. It's still in at the moment. I think in years to come, though, grey will end up being the magnolia.
Well, eventually.
And then we'll all go back to magnolia again, and I'll be back in fashion because magnolia is my thing.
I know.
And I'll never need to redecorate my houses then again in my portfolio because they'll all be magnolia anyway. They'll all be up to date. Quids in.
Yeah.
I mean, but, decoration's one thing, but accessorizing is definitely something that gives it the sizzle and warms up your welcome when somebody walks in the door. You can't go wrong with the seasonal flowers as well, and whatever age your home is. The pots of petunias by the pathway and the hanging baskets trailing with begonias by the front door, window boxes dripping with geraniums. They all look pretty fantastic, don't they?
Yeah, they do. They do. My mother's got our pots and things on the go, and it looks really good when you come in, and they're placed in the right places and things as well.
But it's easy to pop down. I mean, you say to yourself, where am I going to get all that stuff? But you could literally just walk down. You could pop down your B&Q and buy this quite easily at your local garden centre, can't you? And they're all
No,
ready
B&M
made and ready
or
done and
garden
ready to
centres.
go. All you need to do is plug and play, stick it where it should be, and then give it a bit of water. Sunlight does the rest, and job's done.
Yeah, B&M's have got the garden centres now as well, and there's loads of nice stuff in there, and it's quite affordable as well.
Yeah, affordability is the key here, to make sure
Yeah.
that you're not going overboard, and then you can't actually recover what you've got. And then when you think about it, you're maybe not actually taking any of that stuff with you, and you want to leave it. So you're adding. I mean, fair enough, you're adding value, which could end up adding thousands on the end, and it's maybe only costing you a couple of £100 to do it. And I think the cost benefit of that will far outweigh. There's an accountant for me. To cost benefit analysis of investing in plants and pot plants at the front door and painting everything all over. But yeah, as well. And if you've got a chance, maybe consider actually cutting back some of the. A lot of people have ivy climbing up the side of their house, and sometimes it looks quite nice, but sometimes it can actually be overpowering. But be careful, if you start cutting it back, you might end up exposing some things that you don't want to expose, I would say.
Yeah.
And also, you might have this big, massive bit on the side of your building, which just looks completely out of place. And it looks like it's quite problematic, when in actual fact, it's just dirt and ivy. It's been there before in the roots.
No, if it's quite substantial and it's been there a long time, it could even take some of the render with it and things as well. So,
best way to get rid of ivy: cut it at the roots,
cut it at the bottom.
So cut it at the bottom at the roots beforehand, let it all dry out, and then take it off. Don't take it off when it's like what it is now, because basically it'll be holding on to it with, grim life, holding on for its life, basically. And it's like what you say, Richard, as soon as you start to pull that off, that could end up taking off boss rendering. And then you're back to square one, and it's worse than what it was. So, I think it's the whole thing about getting a staging round to talk about it and to make sure you're actually doing the right thing before you do it. Preparation and plan is the key.
Yeah.
It's the old adage. What's the phrase? If you fail to plan, you plan to fail.
Yeah.
So advice is the most important thing from professional estate agents, definitely. And there's quite a few of them. So the next one, which I want to talk about, which is really important, and God, I was up at 5 o'clock this morning. It's like
when I've seen this, I thought of you when we thought of catching the light.
I have no idea what's going on here. I honestly felt like going out for a run or a walk or on my bike or something like that, and I thought I look really odd at 4:30 in the morning going out on your bike. Everybody, there'll be nobody there, to be honest. But it just looks, just the fact that I was up at that time, but I had loads of things to do anyway. But really, it is all about catching the light, isn't it? I mean, do you know the saying? You only get one go at making a good first impression. Well, you actually get two. But most people didn't know that. And walking into an entrance hall that's flooded with natural light is an excellent follow-up to your curb appeal.
Yeah, definitely. If you've got good curb appeal, it will reinforce. Yeah,
it can bolster positive thoughts and actually rescue negative ones from somebody walking in the door in the beginning and seeing them maybe a bit different outside. But as soon as they walk in the front, it's like, how you get that feeling when you walk into a house. Now, most people will identify with that straight away. When you've been viewing houses before, anybody is here and tuning in just now or tuning in later on, you know what it's like when you walk into a property and you just get that feeling, and then everything starts to fall into place, and it's like an alignment of, and you don't know where it comes from. People would call it divine intervention, some people, but it's just deep down this is the place for you. Well, that can be recreated through curb appeal and through getting the hallway and the experience as you walk in perfectly right. But that takes skill and expertise to do that and understand how that works psychologically. And that's why it's important to speak to an estate agent about how to recreate that moment. It will actually make people say, wow, when they walk in that door. It doesn't need to be costly, but you don't know what you don't know. And that's why you ask people like us about what to do on that occasion to make sure you can enhance it as much as possible.
Yeah. Also, people make decisions on emotion, and we know that. And if somebody's looking for, you know, a 3-bed semi with a drive and a garage, and it's got all those things, if they walk in and they don't feel that, and you've not created that right feeling, they're not going to buy it. People make decisions on their emotions.
I think you've hit the nail on the head, Richard. Emotion drives a lot of things here. Especially, I've seen people actually fall out and actually say, "There's no way I'm selling my property to that person," because the agent's actually left them to do the viewing with the buyer, and the conflicts happened as a natural result, because maybe the buyer is a certain profile of buyer. Hence the reason why we do assisted viewings, and sometimes we insist on doing all the viewings, because we know sometimes that people just won't marry with each other when they walk in the door. And this is what it's all about. It's all about conveying the right impression, because you're trying to get your house sold. You're not trying to find out their life story and be their best pal. This is all about getting the property sold for the best possible price to the person that will actually pay the best price for you and give you the right circumstances as well. So that is key and instrumental here. I think leaving every interior door open will pull in more natural light. Sometimes I actually say don't do that, especially if you've got somebody that turns up with all the kids. Now, personally, in my own opinion, because of COVID and all the rest of it, and only 2 people visiting a property, you don't really get that much often anymore, where everybody turns up with their kids in tow, and their auntie and uncle, and their mother and father, and everything else like that. It's very rare for that to happen. That usually happens on the second viewing. So if you've got maybe just a couple of viewers, then leave all the doors open. If you've got an abundance of viewers, all these people at the same time, and the one person, then you're probably wanting to keep that controlled a bit when you're taking people around by closing some of the doors and only opening them when you invite them to walk into the room. Now, when you invite them to walk into the room, and there's a lot of them, you do not walk in first or walk in after them. You stand outside at the door and look in onto them and talk to them. But don't stand in front of the doorway, because people think, I can't get out of the room now. Stand to the side of the doorway so they can see you, so they know there's an exit. This is a flight or fight response from prehistoric times. You see, you stand in front of a door, it's like people think, their mind goes, oh my God, I can't get out. It just sends them into a frenzy. They don't know what's happening with the anxiety and the pressure and the stress it's creating, but that's what happens. Hence the reason why a lot of people walk into a restaurant and they sit in the corner facing the doorway, so nobody's behind them, but they can see the exits. That makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
So when we go to leave every door open, the natural light and possible source, from the back, the side, and the front, and even from above, open the doors to create a sense of flow, if that's possible. Make your home feel bigger and welcoming as it gets. I've started to do that, especially the natural light coming in for the video walkthroughs that we're doing, because naturally everybody wants to see a bright hallway as well. They don't want to see a dark,
especially this time of year. Yeah.
What other things do we need to consider then when we're looking about getting the right lighting and stuff like that? What other stuff should we do?
You talk about leaving the doors open, and obviously that natural light, and obviously the windows is something, and clean windows is a really important one to really capture that the most of that daylight. And if you need to be cleaned, I mean, even if you need to have them cleaned every week, if necessary, have that done, because clean windows are so important. It's extraordinary how much extra light comes through polished panes of windows, and that really elevates everything inside and improves the view to the outside as well. So definitely exposing as much glass as possible will maximize the results that you get. So keep your curtains pulled right back and your blinds fully open and those windows clean, and allow for the light to get in and to be able to see outside as well.
And this is where I think on double glazed units, if you've got burst seals and your windows are a really good viewing window for somebody to see out of, get them changed now. And it's really a simple case if it's UPVC, because it's usually there's just a beading on the outside or the inside. They just pop the beading open, they just take the pane out, they put a new one in, so they can measure the window and put a new one in later on, so that they can do that. But you need to get it all done in advance, because it does take a wee bit of time for them to get all the stuff manufactured to then install it. So if you've got burst panes in your house and you're thinking about selling in the next couple of months, then start to get that done now.
Yeah, it can be done relatively inexpensively. It's not really a lot. People think, oh, we're going to need a whole new window. You don't. It's just for the air seals being broken in that unit, and it just needs, like you say, Jim, popped out and replaced.
Yeah. So what do we need to do then for any room that possibly needs extra help?
So there's a few things you can do. Taking advantage of that natural light, hanging mirrors that reflect the light that's coming in from the windows will really give you that additional like depth to a room and making it feel bigger and brighter, all in one fell swoop. If you position a mirror in the right place to catch the light and give you that extra view to the outside as well, it'll really give you that extra feeling of light and depth in a room.
Be
Even if
careful
you
you
put
don't blind them when they come in the door.
yeah, I know. But mirrors
Imagine walking the door and all of a sudden, it's like the magnifying glass in the sun. It ends up burning. It's like somebody walks in the door and they end up walking out with a tan.
The magnifying glass just always reminds me of being younger with the sun and the ants, which is a horrible thing, but everybody used to do it, I suppose. But large, colourful canvases and things can really brighten up a room if they're the right colour palette positioned in the right place, and it could really change the tone and the vibe. And that would be a 5-minute job to really change things around in a room as well.
Mm-hmm.
But they have to obviously be in keeping colour scheme and the right kind of feel. And even if you're not up for a complete redecoration, painting maybe just a single wall, a lighter colour can really transform a room. That main wall, if you give it a wash with a pale, neutral kind of colour that complements the decor that's already in the room, can really lift it up quite a lot and change the whole room.
It's the whole thing about the smells. It's like if you start painting, you paint one wall, as soon as somebody walks in the door, they smell the paint. And they automatically think that the whole house has been painted, when in actual fact it's just one wall.
Yeah.
It's the new car smell mentality, isn't it? And if you could effectively just like leave a wee tin of paint open at the side. You can leave it open at the side where it's out the way or on top of a cupboard, so it just gravitates with the smell of paint. It's like, and it's the same with things like I think it's the same with things like baking bread, isn't it, and stuff like that as well. It's a mote of smells that make a fundamental difference, and gets everybody excited, I would say, about actually wanting to be in your house and actually stay in your house. There's often I've come round to people's houses to do video walkthroughs, and then I've got to the end of the video, and then I've sat in the back garden and I thought, I could just sit here all day.
Yeah,
it's beautiful. And then in some of the feature rooms as well, it's like, wow, I could just, and then you see the views out the windows as well, and you kind of think, God, I could just sit here and watch the world go by. Some of the coastal areas.
What's really good?
Freedom Villas, we've got Freedom Villa on there now. We've just put it on. Well, it's on pre-portal just now, and it's going to be launched. But Freedom Villa overlooking the prom, it's like, then it overlooks the Old Shell Bay. It's like, wow, that's an amazing view, and it's set back from the road and elevated as well, which actually is a huge advantage. But you're in close proximity to everything else as well. So I definitely think there's houses that just have natural features about them. And it's actually getting somebody to be able to understand that, to exploit these natural features, especially when it comes to video. I mean, you can't really do that with a silent movie, can you? You can't just walk around with music in the background, green sleeves or some fancy song playing while it's going round on a video, and then understand, there's where the sun is, and there's where everything else is, and there's where it goes during the day, and that's what the kitchen's laid out, and what type of worktop is that, and I've got to look that up now. And it's like, you could have just told me in the video. But unfortunately, very few people actually do talk-up videos, which is, it actually drives traffic about 50% more when people actually watch a video and listen to a video and engage with it as well. It so drives more traffic to your property, more of the serious buyers, I would say.
Yeah, definitely. I think you said, Jim, obviously, even when you do your walk rounds and you sit down at the end and you actually feel it yourself, but you're quite good at conveying that and setting that tone. Because I've watched some of your videos and you get to the end and you could feel it coming through, that emotion. And like I say, everybody makes a decision on emotion. So to be able to put that through across a screen is quite good. And the only way you could do that is with video.
What about things like when we're talking about catching the light and extra help for your rooms and stuff like that? Accessorizing, is it a good thing to do, or is it just creating more clutter?
There's a right way to do it. Obviously, you could do mirrors and light, and we could do a quick redecoration, but you could even put some summer tones like textiles, cushions, throws, some table runners that soften maybe the appearance if you've got bulky furniture, just to kind of tone things down a bit. While light coloured rugs can really revitalise a floor. Do you know if it's a floor that's maybe a wee bit darker and things? The tip is go as big as you can. If you've got a nice big rug in a room, it can really lift it up. Don't overdo it with cushions and throws and rugs, and don't do everything at once. Just think about where it's needed, because then, like you say,
20 pillows on the bed, and it's like, it's like, why do we need all these pillows on the bed? I only use one, and that's the pillow you can't see in the first place.
Yeah,
I don't get that. I don't understand that. But you're right. It works for some reason.
Yeah.
Things like for properties that could potentially be holiday homes or serviced accommodation. Definitely, I think consider putting out fluffy towels on the beds and stuff like that. You know how? So you set it up as kind of like that, so people think, oh, because you let's be honest, when you go to a hotel, it's often better than your house. So if you give that impression that your bedrooms are like a hotel's bedroom, then people see a huge benefit in that, and yet it's a minimal cost to do it.
Yeah.
So fluffy towels on the bed, all set up like that typical example of, the different types. You've got your main washing one, you've got your drying one, and then you've got your hand towel that goes on top, and you just put it in it, and it's in the right color scheme. When somebody walks into a bedroom, they immediately think, I could just stay here right now.
Yeah. And that's what you want people to feel.
Especially if they've been washed in the right fabric for softener and stuff like that. Don't they? And pick the right fabric softener and the smells for the right time of year. Because I mean, it's all in your clothes anyway, so you may as well take advantage of it and let it breathe into the room to actually revitalise and rejuvenate all the smells, because that's what sells. Smells sell, but all the right smells for obvious reasons. And having that understanding, I'll be honest, I did walk into a place the other day, and they had a dog, and the hallway straight away was absolutely reeking. But then as soon as you got into the house, it's like it was away. And I'm thinking, how on earth is that? How is that possible? There was no bed there or anything. So whether they're actually taking it away for the purpose of me viewing it was a different story, or maybe the dog actually just rang itself out every time it came in. Maybe that was the possibility. There was another one as well where I walked in and somebody had all the trainers lying about. So this is what we're going to go on to talk about next, and this is how it's so important. That all the the house is beautiful, but you walked in that one room and it actually felt it smelled like damp, but in actual fact it was the trainers all sitting there. So keeping rooms fresh and cool are probably one of the most fundamental things that you can do to just stimulate these senses in your buyer's mind. Buyers will stay longer in a home and like it more when the temperature is comfortable. In winter, though, it's about cranking up the heat. But in summer, it's about escaping it. But be careful, because you could open a window and there could be massive wind that blows in and out and cause creaky doors and floors and, all the noises coming. And you might have traffic passing forward and back and forward as well, which actually puts people off. Now, you don't hear it because you've lived there all your life for quite a while. And you won't hear it because it's just natural background noise now to you. But to somebody walking your door for the first time, it is stressful, and it makes them very anxious as a result of that. So leave your windows open until the viewing takes place, and then quickly round before and close all the windows and put all the lights on, even though it's the middle of the day, just in case the sun disappears behind a cloud and your room goes completely dark.
Yeah, lights on, toilet seat down. There's lots of things.
Toilet seat's a big thing for me. It's like, oh my goodness, the amount of photographs you get and people have left the toilet seat up. And I think to myself, it's not just me, it does that. It's a lot of other people as well that think like that. It's about 50-50. Some people don't mind and some people really do mind. But you don't want to give anybody an excuse just to actually get diverted from your property. and looking at your photographs or taking the video tour through. So this is why I go through and I walk through and I spend about 15 minutes to prepare myself and get my right storyboard in my head about how I'm going to start with this property and what I'm going to say about it, what rooms I'm going to visit, when I'm going to visit them, and where I'm going to end the property based on if the sun's outside and beaming or if it's torrential rain, possibly which room I'm going to end it. And that's exactly how it should be done, and having that storyboard in your head, no just turning up and going, right, let's get on with it, and then chopping and changing. And this has to be a one flow all the way through to make it really easy for people to continue to engage with your video and watch it all the way through. Because if they watch it all the way through, you know what happens next? You get put up in the rankings. Everybody else starts to see your video organically. And then it's more, you get more reach as a natural result of that, especially recording in high definition. So there's different things that you could do at different times of year. But what do you think? Maintain a gentle draft?
Because you say obviously
cool.
Yeah, you need to be careful about having all the windows open, like you say, Jim. You don't want a big draft coming through, slamming doors and things as well. So try and maintain that kind of gentle through draft, which will keep the inside of your home cool and the air refreshed. So just leave a couple of windows open, and you could leave them just ajar on the mid locks or whatever, and have it preferably facing opposite directions. One at the front, one at the back, that create that or encourage that natural flow throughout the house without it being quite a strong wind, and just have that nice gentle breeze running through. It'll keep it fresh and keeps it cool as well. Because I mean, although we don't get that many weeks of summer, when it is summer, it gets hot here. And if somebody's hot and bothered, they're not going to be concentrating on the property.
Now, we talked about the windows. It's quite interesting, and I was talking about closing them just in case there's any traffic outside. But if you're a seller and you're next to a road, then it's maybe worth actually, if it does come up in the conversation, because this is what we would do normally. If it came up in the conversation, it's next to a busy road, and the very fact is the noise that would happen. It's actually quite easy for me then to open the window, let them hear the noise, and then close the window, and suddenly the noise disappears. And then it shows them straight away. It's like, wow, there is no noise. This shouldn't bother me anymore. So now that reservation and that objection has been removed from that person's mind. You've covered it, and you've made it. You've demonstrated clearly that the windows and are really good soundproofing as well as the property itself. So it's quite a good one to do. Here's what you do for any rooms that get full of sun during the day. My back dining kitchen's like that. Jeez, it's like a blooming oven. And I think to myself, every time I walk in it, I think to myself, have we left the heat on or something? We've left the oven on or something like that. Because it's like night and day when you go from the hall to the back of the house, because it's all, where the sun's beating in all the time and there's no interruption. So for rooms where you've got that like that, keep the curtains and blinds closed to keep the heat out. But remember, we're always happy to arrive a few minutes earlier to actually to open everything up, to make all that light come in and that brightness appear. So don't worry about that. You don't need to. If you're going out for the rest of the day, just close them, because we prepare it anyway. We all, personally for me, I'll turn up, maybe 5-10 minutes earlier, and then I'll go around the house and I'll make sure it's properly staged so I can take people through, and I can have that storyboard in my mind about where they go next, and I can then engineer the whole process as to what I want somebody to do at the end of this, which is basically talk about the property and potentially make me an offer.
Yeah, but it's all those things, like you say, opening curtains, putting on the lights, putting down the toilet seats, making sure everything's just so for the person arriving for the viewing. And then you could then take them around as you see fit, like you say, depending on the weather and things, where you want to start and finish, and then discuss about, obviously, offers. It's
sometimes important as well when you have plants. So plants in a room, can be quite good because they're obviously water, and they lose water during the
transpiration.
During that process, and it's just like breathing, I suppose, but the plants are doing it as well. But that actually cools down the whole room and helps purify the air as well. Not to mention, they actually they look great. They're in season, aren't they? The greens. you've got that
Yeah,
green
and
lush.
plants, do you know, foliage and plants and things is quite an on-trend thing now as well.
Mhm. This then leads us then over on plants, how important it is. So how important is it then for to do something about your garden? Because I can
Yeah,
see a beautiful house sometimes, and then when you walk at the back garden, it's like a bomb site.
yeah. Go for garden glory.
So what's your thoughts on that then?
So, I mean, everyone's thinking about life outside when it comes to the summertime. Do
Hmm.
you know people will sit maybe with their pins or a gin on the terrace, or do you know al fresco dining, and or even just sitting outside reading. Um, you might have a hammock, or do you know all these kind of things that people have got outside now.
Mm,
And you really need to make capitalize and make the most of these outside spaces. More than anything else, having a really inviting place to sit that really creates that impression of another room outside. So whether it's maybe a small balcony, you've got a really large garden, a table and chairs are a seasonal must-have, I think, to create that outside
yeah.
sitting area. And if you feel a bit bare, maybe some textiles again will come in to the rescue with maybe seating cushions and just some things that will add a wee bit more comfort to just the bare timber or metal that's outside.
I think a good analogy of that was James Street in Dyke. Actually, we had
Hmm.
I think it was a 4-bedroom upper apartment over the 2 levels. And when you walked in down at the bottom, so you got entrance to the bottom, and it was a big long hallway as you go along, but you had a back
Yep.
door which went into a courtyard which overlooked the sea. But it was just a wee courtyard that never went right to the wall, but you still sat in the sun all the time, and you were protected with the elements because you had buildings a wee bit further back either side. So it was good from that point of view. But see, when you got to the top floor and you were in the living room, it's like they had a wee tiny, and we're not talking about a tiny balcony for a table and a chair either side. That is effectively it. You had the patio doors opened and you got there right in there and then, but you were letting all the natural air come in, all the natural light come in. But then when you thought about, I mean, admittedly, the people will probably never ever sit in that balcony they'll sit in the balcony very rarely, probably. But the very fact that you can do it
And that's
gives that
there. Yeah.
fundamental. Yeah, the very fact that you can do it. It's like what we say every single time when I walk into a property and I realise there's potential to extend either up or out or round the back. I always mention there's potential to extend, but when you go back to then resell that property, most people haven't done it. But that's what attracted them to buy it in the first place, because they felt at that point in time just having the potential to extend or maybe repurpose a room to another use was more than enough to actually tip them over the edge to make an offer.
And the thing is, and like you say, Jim, that's maybe attracted them in the first instance, but they never actually followed through in it. But the prospect was there. And that's something that we ask people as well when we go out to see them. It's like, what attracted you to purchase the property in the first
Yeah.
instance?
And we talk about this the garden being another room effectively, because
Yeah.
let's talk about it again. Lockdown taught everybody that.
Yeah.
People were having pubs and bars and everything out in their garden, and they've still got some of them. The proverbial man cave.
Yeah.
That was a typical example, and a lot of people have actually still got these things out in their garden, and they don't take them with them. So it's a fantastic selling point. So make sure you keep these updated, and make sure you keep them, preserved. Don't let them,
Maintain.
yeah, don't let them decay. Let's be honest, because a lot of people actually put them in and think it's wonderful, but they don't realize ongoing maintenance stuff to have with them.
Yeah.
So make sure you do that, because it's just a big wow factor, and will definitely get more interest in your property and actually potentially add value, even though they don't include that in the home report. They
Hmm.
can't. Surveyors can't, because it's not bricks and mortar. If you've got a
No,
timber,
but it creates
outbuilding,
that emotion.
yeah, so it's difficult for them to include that. But let's be honest, there's ways and means to try and do that. We all know that.
Yeah.
Reminds me of one in Cooper, actually. I think it's Moat Hill Road, years and years ago. Everybody else walked out and says 120,000, and I went, no, it's 140. And he went, really? I went, how's that? I says, well, these, I know it can't be included, but they're significant enough and they're solid, and they're actually part of the fabric of the building now. And I convinced a surveyor that was the case, and it went for 145,000. Could you imagine if they picked other agent 120 grand? They would have lost
There's a lot of
25,000 pounds
25 grand.
just like that. And that's what a lot of people, that's what few people actually don't understand. They actually pick an agent purely based on the fact that who is the cheapest.
But they're not thinking of the added value at the end.
They don't think about track record. They don't think about the fact that they have this impression in their mind they've got to save as much money as possible, when in actual fact you've got to make as much money as possible. And the first thing you have to do is go for people who can give you the right marketing strategy, but have clearly demonstrated in the past what they've achieved for other properties in comparison to other agents. I think that's a great one to do. Like, for example, when we sell next door to each other, they're exactly the same properties. And we often get, I remember one of them in St. Monans. And within a month, I got 55,000 more for the same property next door to this one. Gwen was over the moon about that. Next door obviously wasn't happy. I wonder if they said anything to their agent. I would love to know who these owners were, so I could go back to them and ask them, did you realise that I got 55,000 more for next door than yours? But that's not the first time. That happens quite a lot. But if you can clearly demonstrate that, and you can get on a stage and clearly demonstrate that's happening, then that's probably a good track record to follow, as well as what's your average in the area for over the home report value you achieve for these types of properties. What's your average? Because that's a good benchmark to compare estate agents as well. You know, what's your average you achieve? Because that then demonstrates clearly they're strong at negotiating, and that's what you want to do. You know what demonstrates clearly an estate agent is poor at negotiation? When they walk in the door and the first thing they think about is, how low can I go with my fee in order to get this listing? Because then that's exactly what they're going to do with your price of your house when it comes to negotiation. And you're not going to get to negotiate because they're the one front line in charge with them, in touch with the actual buyer. So it's going to be really difficult for you to ascertain that and negotiate on your own behalf if you think you're a strong negotiator. You've not got a chance. So that's why it's so important. That's why it's so important to get the right person. Anyway, let's get back to the garden. What else have we got to think about then?
Well, yeah, with regards to the garden, I mean, you don't have to be a gardening expert to inject maybe some colour and vibrance into the area. Do you know, bare patios, decks, and even lawns will liven up with maybe a few pots of maybe summer flowers and everything, like you said, Jim. And the designer trick we've spoken about before is couple them, well, I'll say couple them up, but group them up in threes when you're doing pots and things on decks and patio areas. Yeah, power of three. And for any children's playthings, it's not realistic to move maybe a slide and a trampoline wherever there's a viewing. So, but you can obviously locate them where there's maybe least in the way or not in the view of the viewers. For smaller toys, keep a crate or something at the side that's handy to get them easily out of the way and quickly back out for playtime and things for the kids. But yeah, just think about where things are going to be positioned in people's view line when they're viewing, and if it's small things, store them away.
I remember in Park in Torreforret where I was selling it's 3 paddocks, and it was a 6-bedroom bungalow up the back of Cooper, and their trampoline was sunk into the ground.
Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah,
they dug a big massive hole, obviously, and put the trampoline in there, and it's like, wow. So it doesn't actually look like there's a trampoline there, but when you get over to it, it's like, wow. And I'm not kidding. It wasn't a wee tiny wee trampoline for, you know, just having exercises on. This was a massive kids trampoline. Yeah, perfect. But the great thing is, you wouldn't need to put around protective, you know, netting either, because you're not going to fall out. You're just going to fall on the grass.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's ways and means to do that. I'm not telling everybody if we're going to dig a hole in your back garden that you put your trampoline in it. But it says that's one of the unique features that I actually saw in a park at Torreforret. That was another one that went for a really good price and got a good offer on pre-portal, and it was done and dusted. Because the video straight away, saw the video, made an offer, did the job, and it was over the line straight away at a huge premium. 50,000 extra.
Jim, I'm just going to say you're averaging what, 11% over home report just now?
For last year benchmark, you're 11% in the East Nuke area, and St Andrews it's around about just a wee bit less, and the central Leavenmouth and that you're probably talking about 8%, 6% or thereabouts, and then when you go across to Glenorthus Kirkcaldy, it starts to drop again a wee bit. But they're the fastest markets to sell because it's volume oriented. And unfortunately, You've got quite a lot of estate agents actually that don't understand the remit, and they just want things sold as quick as possible. So they don't understand about how to attractively price a property in order to negotiate it to push it back up. So they're just convincing their sellers that it's actually just take the first offer going so I can get my fee.
Then turn that around and move on to the next one.
Hardly that's the case. That's the case.
Volume.
But it's volume orientated because they're they're doing it for ridiculous prices, and you can't afford to actually do anything for that as a result of it, other than just put them on Rightmove and Zoopla and hope for the best. Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
So you were talking about children's playthings, trampolines, and all the rest, and putting that away. What's the final things we've got to think about then?
Well, obviously, with the lighter nights and obviously the extended time we could do viewings, you're going to have to start expecting evening viewings to be taking place. So in the winter, it's not so common because it is so dark and things. So with the longer days of summer, evening viewings become more popular and more productive as well. I think decisions to buy are often made faster in the summer, with no need to come back, in the daylight for another viewing. After your first one maybe was in a darker time of the day, and buyers are more certain when they can see everything in the light. It makes a lot better to see things in that light, and when everything looks its best. So and that carries on to later in the day. So evening viewings, be prepared for that, and they do obviously run longer.
And it's quite interesting. Here's the train of thought, though. Here's the train of thought. Everybody thinks I'll wait till summer to sell my house, and that's fine. And then I say to them, why are you waiting till summer? Because the whole place will be in full bloom and it'll look glorious. And then my next step to that is, yeah, that's fine. But do you know everybody else's house will be exactly the same then? It's almost thought like it's a unique feature that they've got, but it's like, no, everybody else has got that as well.
Yeah.
So you're maybe no ahead of everybody else. And that's often why I say to people the best time to sell sometimes is winter. Because very few people go on the market because they're all waiting for summer and spring. Therefore, you've got less supply. Therefore, if you've got the same demand, which you usually have typically, because you can create that demand, then you've got more attractive, you've got a bigger audience for fewer properties. And that's sometimes the benefit of having winter or even autumn when it's going into what they're proposed to be a quieter season. But I think it's all to do with, you're only quiet based on the drive of your estate agent, whether they want to be quiet or no. It's like time off and all the rest of it, and then nobody's taking over, especially the ones that are on their own, the self-employed. They're on their own, nobody to cover for them, so they go on holiday, and the next minute you're stuck for 2 weeks without anybody really doing anything for you. And I'll get my colleague to do that, but they're working in their business as well. So it's often you're looking for a team of people to take over. I get approached all the time, and people go, "Can you just look after my property yourself?" And I'm like, "No, I can't." And if you are going to have to be 10 grand, it's like, because there's no way I can do that, because I can't give you can't have me exclusively for that very reason, because it's not cost effective to do that, because I would have to be solely on your property all the time, doing everything for you. And it takes a team to make that happen, because I'm not going to be there all the time, because I have to look after other people and I've got other business interests to run. So it's not possible to do that. I do know an agent that does that down south. He only deals with 3 properties a month, and his average fee is £10,000.
I was just going to say, but his fee will reflect that. Yeah.
And that's all he does. And when he gets to 3, he closes his book for the month. And somebody else comes along and says, "I need you to sell my house." He goes, "Sorry, Simon." Simon says, "I'm sorry, I'm doing this for you." But I tell you what, he creates fantastic lead-in teaser trailers for their property, and also video walkthroughs as well, because he's got the right investment in the property in order to do that. So the fee's not going fully to him. He's using that money to do the right things for that property and get the right tools to sell that property, often to people that would maybe not consider it, but then it gets into their mind and disrupts them by what he's doing.
Yeah, definitely. And it's interesting what you say about the time for people to sell, or the right time for people to sell. It's all about point of readiness. And if you're ready to sell, then the time is now, no matter what time of year it is. But back to the summer, and I think with the summer viewings and talking about later viewings in the day and things, you'll find that people tend to hang around a wee bit longer and kind of savour the area and the neighbourhood, and because it's that they're not rushing away home because it's cold and that, right, we're finished and we're gone. And sometimes we'll recommend places to go and have a wee look at roundabout in the area, whether it's a pub or whether it's just somewhere to experience the local atmosphere or something. There's always and a local agent that knows the area will always do that, or should always do that.
It's the old story that we all got told when we were younger about the sun and the wind. Where the wind was convinced he could blow this person's jacket off, and the more the wind blew, the more the person tightened their jacket. And then the sun decided to take a go, and as soon as he put the sun out, the person went, "Oh, I'm too hot," took his jacket off straight away. And it's a great analogy for summertime and showing how this type of weather actually affects people's moods. And that's why you often find that typically, a lot more property come on, a lot more property gets sold, but a lot more's coming on. So people have a lot more choice as a result of that. Therefore, they can choose someone else's house rather than yours. So while there's more houses sold in summer, there's more houses listed in summer. And so there's different angles to that in terms of the right strategies at the right point in time in order to do that. So yeah, you're right, Richard. They hang around, they like to enjoy the area. They'll maybe go down to the beach if you're in a coastal destination. They'll possibly go around to, as you said, one of the restaurants or the pubs or something like that, to just enjoy themselves and get a feel for what the place is like overall and what the community is like, especially in the East Nuke, and when you go to places like St Andrews and that as well, and Leavenworth as well. We're having the train station here now. These are fundamental key. This is fundamental key information that people need to know, because they're not buying your house really. They're buying the lifestyle that goes with it.
Yeah,
that's what they're buying. They're thinking about, what schools are my children going to? What lifestyle have they got as they're growing up? I'm in a city right now. They don't really get out the doors. They could be out the doors playing all the time because we're more or less near the beach.
Yeah,
they could be out doing outdoor sports. They could be doing outdoor sports rather than sitting looking at their phones all the time and actually sitting on a computer all the time. Now, sometimes it's beneficial, but sometimes it's not. And having that, just that, even outside in the actual weather, sitting looking at their phones is beneficial more than actually sitting inside. So if you've got a brilliant coastal destination, like for example Fife, because we all know the West Coast horrific, because they've got the Atlantic, and you've got all the weather patterns from the Atlantic comes over the West Coast, and the East Coast has all the glorious weather and far better microclimate. And especially in Fife, where you've got microclimates that are separate from the Leavenworth area, the Kirkcaldy area, the Dunfermline area, over to East Nuke, and then over into St Andrews. And you could go to any different place in Fife, and at some point in time, there'll be one place that's probably got the sun.
Yeah.
So evening appointments are actually really, really key and crucial here. You're right. What are the things we've got to think about then? We've thought about pubs and the atmosphere and all the rest of it.
Yeah, well, as you approach that later time in the day, and as we spoke about the inside-outside feeling, do you know, if you're planning to have dinner and things after the viewings are taking place, do you know, set up your table outside so that viewers could see it, and have, do you know, maybe conjure that al fresco lifestyle, do you know, create that feeling, that ambience with them, and they could see themselves maybe setting up dinner at that time of night in the summer in that weather, and it really creates that emotion with them. And that really will be quite receptive. And talking about leaving the house, do you know, if you're just going to set up and leave for viewers and things as well, it's really worth having at some point of contact and options where you could just drop out to maybe a family's house or a friend that's nearby, or get the kids out to do like a play date or something while the viewers are coming. Always have that set up and ready for the viewers later in the day. If there's going to be,
I mean, there's a balance in that here. There's a balance in that, especially when it comes to viewings. Do you do the viewing yourself, or do you ask the agent to do it?
Yeah.
Now, this is probably quite key. There's a balancing act there, and it just depends on the personal circumstances. I mean, if somebody's an elderly person and they really don't have any mobility, then possibly maybe sitting in the house and letting your agent go round at the same time, but don't interfere. Unless your agent comes on, unless your agent comes over to you and asks you a question or includes you in the conversation, then do not interfere. Just stick to what you're doing. Even though you overhear them saying something, you think, I've got the answer to that. Do not do that, because your agent is skillfully taking that person down a path in order to get the result at the end they want, which is potentially get an offer or some sort of indication strongly they maybe might actually buy your house. As soon as you interrupt, you stop that straight away, and they're away down another path now, because then you've taken the whole flow of the conversation away. So it's key, if you're going to hang about in the house, that you're out of earshot, and if you are in earshot, do not interrupt and do not say anything, even though it's negative and you maybe overhear it from the buyer. It's key here that you don't do that, because your agent is there to do that job for you. Now, if you're a great negotiator and all the rest of it, potentially you might want to do it yourself. I do get people saying, I've sold tons of houses. You know, I've sold 20 houses over the years. I know exactly what I'm doing. Every single one of them sells. Yes, but did every single one of them sell for the maximum amount you could have achieved for it? And I think the answer to that would be no. Now, how can you prove that? Because often when I go back to people and when I'm going to sell their house, I say to them, the last agent you had, it sold you this house. Would you have paid more for this house? Slightly more, maybe 1,000 or 2,000 more. More than likely, every single time what's happened is every single person said, yes, I would have paid more. And that tells me exactly straight away that every agent left more money on the table that they could have got for their seller. It should have just wiped out their fees for them, and they would have got them for nothing and got cash back in the exercise potentially. And that to me is a crime, more or less. I think that's appalling to hear that story about how people would say, you know, I would have paid more. Yeah, I would have paid more for this property, but the agent never asked me. They never negotiated with me. They just took my offer straight to the seller and went, what do you think? And the seller went, that's fantastic, because they've been in it for 20 years and it's gone up by about 4 times. And they immediately go, that's amazing. That's a huge amount of money. But in actual fact, it's not, because potentially sometimes inflation's eaten into that. So in real terms, it's not at all. So you want to make sure you capitalize on that. And that's why it's worth getting the right advice before you start your journey. Remember, I keep going back to saying, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So get the right people out, the experts out in the beginning, and make sure you get the right advice before you start your journey. Final words for you, Richard.
Definitely. Yeah, I think it's all about creating that right first impression, like we talked about at the beginning. The curb appeal, having the right impression from the outset. But you've also got that second chance to catch it again as you walk in, and the initial feeling. And like we said, people make decisions on emotions. So create that the right feeling when viewings are taking place. And if you've got a good agent, like you say, Jim, they will advise you on those small things to do and how to have your property presented properly, and they'll be able to do the proper walkthrough and negotiation on your behalf.
Perfect. So with everything about the summer season on your side, it's the perfect opportunity for your home when it looks at its best. Thank you so much for coming on the show, Richard, and giving an insight into that. If anybody else is wanting to ask any questions later on, please feel free. You could message us direct on this post. You don't need to put anything in the comments. Until next time, guys, it's bye-bye from us.